phone.
Once we get back there.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. We're gonna get the meeting started. Becky, would you call the roll call?
Absolutely. Tom Wilson, Dave Bally,
Here.
Bill Palin,
Here.
Marvin Williams,
Present.
Rick Humphrey,
Here.
Jack Scroggstead.
Here. Okay, for visitors, we've got Greg, do you have anything for us for the properties committee that you want to talk about?
Not really, no. We're gonna pretty much touch base on everything that's on the agenda. So
All right, perfect.
it'll be good.
Yeah, that little,
Hear me now?
yep. Okay, the approval of the minutes for the previous meeting. The minutes were attached in the onboard. Is there any corrections to the meeting minutes from last month? If not, the minutes will be approved as read. Okay. Review on the agenda for your review is the report from the treasurer's office showing claims paid March 11th through April 7th. Is there any questions on that through your onboard?
I just noticed there was a couple alarm detection charges. Alarm detection still being used or up and running at the jail?
Not that I'm aware of. The fire alarm system was, it's not being used because the building's empty.
Right.
And so the fire department said we could eliminate that. And all they did is just take the transmitter out. As far as alarm system, I'm not aware of anything that's in place there.
I just didn't know if we were having to pay for, that service.
That's something we might want to address, after we get further down the road and what we're doing to that. As far as I know, there's no alarm detection other than our swipe cards. And there's no alarm on that. I'm not aware of any other
So-
like ADS or anything like that.
So Jack, what you were seeing on that list there is for this building here. So each of the departments pay a portion of the alarm system for this building.
It just, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, I remember we used to have one over at the jail. We had to pay them. Didn't know. Just curious.
Is Terry on Zoom?
She's not yet.
Okay, let's go to the department head reports. Do you have anything for us, Greg?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Dee, do you have anything?
And Wendy said that my report is on board.
Yep.
So if you don't see it, guys, attached to your agenda there, it's in the resource folder under properties, planning and zoning folder. So Dee does have a report out there.
So we just finished up. Sorry, it's everyone.
Greg, do you have anything for us?
Just my report, Tom. You want me to skim through that?
Sure, let's go through it.
Okay, I'll just hit some of the highlights on the agenda today. I think in the new business section is that top agenda item on my report, which is a resolution for the IDOT consolidated vehicle procurement piece. This is the normal request. I should say in quotes normal because IDOT has not had this CVP program for the last 2 years. It was delayed during the pandemic. And basically the last piece of my application is just going to be that resolution that will be passed through here and onto the county board for their consideration. We are, because our fleet is aging, requesting up to 10 replacement vehicles. That's a mixture of both light duty as well as minivans that will go into the system and replace, like I said, some aging vehicles, some of whom have more than 170,000 miles on it and are at least 2014 in terms of how old they are. Only other thing that I wanted to touch on was we will be going out for bids for architectural and engineering design of the planned Oregon location. And that publication for that public notice is expected to be in this Thursday's newspaper, the 14th of April. And we're caught up on actually payments received from IDOT. We just got a little over 1.9 million for reimbursements within the past 2 weeks.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Greg?
And then Tom, can I interrupt for a second? So I think that Dee was being polite and waiting for Jack and Marvin to get done talking. Thank you, Jack, for helping Marvin get through and navigate on board here, but she was hesitating, I think, waiting for them to be finished. I think she does have a report, and I do want to point out that there are some items on your agenda that are not going to sync up with Dee's report. Some things that we received as of last week when we posted the agenda that have since changed. So pay particular attention to Dee's report and not so much to the agenda items that are on onboard. The good news is that we have corrected anything that needed to be corrected or modified on the executive committee and of course, ultimately the full board. So with that, I'll throw it back to Dee.
So last Thursday, we finished up on the petition 21P 1585, the planned unit development, which the zoning board has recommended to the county board with conditions, and also petition 21P 1586, which is the Invenergy hydrogen petition. That also has been recommended to the county board with conditions. And the conditions should be for Invenergy on board, but we do not have the PUD conditions and recommendations posted yet. That should be available by executive committee. We have a couple petitions coming before us in May, nothing from planning, a couple appointments and reappointments to the zoning board, and two other things that I'd like Alice to bring up right now that we've been working on in the office. That's not on the agenda, but just so you're aware for discussion only.
I am working on getting a petition for revocation of special use permit on file for two properties in south of Amboy, north of Split. One is for a wind turbine that has been not operational for over the last 3 years. And then an adjacent parcel, which was given a permit for a museum that has never been developed. So the county is looking to proceed on revoking the special use permits on those two.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Dee or Alice? Yes, Rick?
This might be a question maybe for Charlie, but in a situation like that where they have not utilized the special use, is there a term that it automatically expires, or do we have to actually go for to revoke that? Or is it just automatically just right off into the sunset?
It takes action from the county to do something. It doesn't just expire on its own terms.
Okay, but is there, there's a term limit or time
Correct.
limit
I
on
think
these
it's
things?
3 years,
Is
if I remember off the top of my head.
Is that straight across the board on all special use?
I don't remember that off the top of my head.
So they need to be substantially underway within a year or it goes away, or if it has been vacant of the use for a period of 3 years.
So in the case of the wind tower, is that, I mean, is that part of the wind farm down there?
No, it's owned by a separate individual. And that same individual also owns the museum special use property.
Were they required to have any decommissioning monies on hand?
No, this was way back in the beginning. So
Early 2000s.
GSG has offered to assist us in decommissioning should we come to that. That is why we are trying to proceed at this time with them coming into the area. They said if they have a crane available, they can help us with the decommissioning should we need it.
Thank you.
Okay, John?
That would be the museum site. And then the turbine is right practically adjacent to that. It was. Correct.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Sheriff Symington. Do you have anything for us this morning on for the properties?
Morning, sir. No, I'm just listening in to see if there's any questions that come up later on So, no, nothing for the agenda.
Very good. Terry, how are we doing this morning? Do you want to give your report?
Hi, Tom. Yeah, it's up to you. It's the ordinances. I don't know if you want to do them now or down on the agenda, but I don't have a report.
We'll do them down on the, we'll do them down on the agenda.
Okay.
So, very good. Renewable energy, Chris Norberg couldn't come in this morning. But, Marilyn, how you doing this morning? Do you have anything for the properties committee?
Good morning. No, not really. Just thought I'd listen in, see what was happening with the old jail, and it's easier to log on than come up when I'm not on the committee.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So the Renewable Energy Committee, I asked Chris to come in and give an update of what's going on there, but Alice, I know I'm maybe put you on the spot a little bit, but would you mind letting us know what was going on with the Renewable Energy Committee at this time?
Sure. Let me think here. So the county board approved Chastain and Associates assisting us with the ordinance writing. So the first thing that they are assisting us with is the pipeline ordinance. We are getting ready to roll out a survey to the public to get their input up front. That will be open for a period of 2 weeks, and then we'll put the results into a report and come back to us with a draft. The biogas facility project with the city of Amboy is still pending. We are trying to work out a memorandum of understanding with the city, and Charlie is still in communications with their attorney about that. All the other ordinances are kind of on hold until we get through with the pipeline.
And the survey went out Monday, is that correct?
It was going to go out Monday, but it's kind of gotten pushed back a little bit,
Okay.
and we're shooting for Friday at the latest, or
Okay,
Thursday at the latest.
very good. Thank you. Zoning procedures, restructuring and enforcement updates. Rick, is there anything at this point that we could discuss or?
No report, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, under old business, the repurposing of the old jail, the status report of that. So we got the demolition blueprints done. We're still looking at a few things that need to be done as far as design work that has to be done by the architect to get the finished plans put together as far as what we're putting back into the jail. But we've already received a bill from Brad Hunsberger, our architect. His demolition portion of that and all the reviews were $4,000. I believe that's been paid. But we're continuing to work on the jail at the present moment. The new courts building boiler replacement project. We've reached out to Loescher and made sure that everything on the everything that was bid was in their price. They've done all of that. They've given us everything that we asked them for. The contract is ready to be signed, I believe. I'm sure that'll go to Bob and Wendy and Charlie. Can't forget Charlie. But that'll get done soon, and then we'll get those boilers ordered and get going on the replacement of the boilers at the newest part of the new courts building. Shoot. No. Yep. And there is a boiler, just for everyone's knowledge, there is a boiler in the 1983 section, the 40s, is it Greg, 47 years old, 43?
It's like 43, 42 years old.
42-year-old boiler, the original boiler for the original new courthouse is going to be in dire need of replacement as well. We've got some things that are failing on that currently, or that we need to look into, but we're trying to put everything into one package. So with the boiler project, I don't want anyone in the properties to be misconstrued that if we go for another boiler project for the new courts buildings, because we have another boiler. So the reason we acted so fast on the ones that we're currently in is because they are no longer operational. So we're being reactive, not proactive. The next one we would be proactive on, but it is in dire need of repair or replacement. And that's going to be something that is going to be brought before our committee as far as the dollar amounts and what have you that we're projecting these price or projects to be. We have a preventative maintenance service agreement for the old and new courthouse. Greg, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, they broke it out in two different areas, one for the new courthouse and one for the old courthouse. They also broke it down to how many years you want to do this. They can hold the price fairly close to the first year if you do the 3-year choice. For the new courthouse, it was $31,045 for the first year, $31,975 for the second year, and $32,935 for the third year. And the filters and the air conditioner coils and stuff get changed, and those units get checked quarterly. The rooftop units with the heating side and the boilers and all the VAVs and everything are done semi-annually.
And the
So
VAVs
within
are
that,
75 VAVs in the new courts buildings.
there's 72 of them.
72.
Yes, in the new
It's
courts
very labor
building.
intensive.
Yes, and
Yes.
then, they do fail, so those are pretty old units. So we are getting the new control system, which will involve new modulators for this building, but over there, there's still the existing older ones.
Sure. So does anybody have any questions on the preventative maintenance? Go ahead, Rick.
So that I can understand, we've got a whole new system here, correct?
We got, it's not done yet, but yes, we got a new,
Well,
yes.
okay.
Yep.
And then over at the new courts building.
Yep.
We're got a boiler and stuff that we're looking at replacing now, and then there's an additional boiler for.
Yep.
Okay,
And it also has additional, those pumps would need to be changed when the boiler. No,
this-
here and over there. The pumps were,
Yeah.
since it was an emergency situation in this building,
Yeah.
they didn't do the pumps. So we ended up just swapping out the boiler because it was during the heating system and getting that up and running. So there was a lot of stuff that didn't get done that should have been done. And we're trying to catch up on all that right now, so.
so I guess, I mean, what have we done in the past for?
Nothing.
Okay, and then.
And then we're paying for it.
And I understand that. I guess that I'm not against this. I mean, I think that is probably something that we need. I guess what I'm looking at again is, once again, we're looking at an unbudgeted item, probably to the tune of about $50-some thousand. I guess I'd rather see this get in a regular budgeted schedule with our new budget coming in December. I would think that our stuff currently is under warranty for at least for the next 6 months.
That's not the way you look at it.
Well, I'm just saying,
It's
is
not the way you look at it.
the problem is once again, we're tapping into unbudgeted money, and
Sure.
I don't know where it's gonna come from. And
Right,
that's-
and
I'm
that-
not against the maintenance schedule whatsoever. I
Right.
think that that's very important, so.
Yep.
I just don't know where it's gonna come
Mr.
from.
Bailey?
Yeah, this is a thing that I know Tom's really working on stuff that, setting up a maintenance, setting up a list of roofs, boilers, heating system stuff, and being able to put up a schedule so it gets into a budget every year. These things are, okay, we react rather than looking ahead and saying, okay, guys, put this in the budget for the next few years. So I see, we're looking forward now instead of just, oh my gosh, it happened. So.
John?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what Tom's doing. This should have been done 8-10 years ago. However, due to lack of funds and lack of cooperation by previous committees and boards, we didn't have the money to spend. This is the way it should be. As long as the money holds out, I would suggest that this is what happens.
And I think as a property committee, it's our recommendation to send it to finance, and it's their job to figure out how it's going to get paid for. We want them to understand that we're trying to maintain the buildings to the best of our knowledge, and that's what our group's supposed to do. The financing and the final board would have the final say in whatever situation happens. I would hate to see it shot down, but we don't have that control, but we do have the control in order to send it to the finance committee. The finance committee, who we send it to? Yeah, finance. So, yes, Greg.
We have to keep in mind too, we do not have a maintenance contract on the new jail. Everybody voted it down last year, and because it was new equipment, well, the equipment's only warranted for a year. So now we have to go back and I have to get that reassessed to see how much it's gonna cost so that we can have a maintenance program there. We do have a water clarified test that we do on the boiler system out there, which is very mandatory when you have a new system. We're also gonna look for that option on this building and the
Yes.
new courts building, because something that shouldn't not be not done, because it just ruins the boiler. It takes the life right out of the boiler over a short period of time.
Go ahead, Rick. Well, no, the fact of that matter is, we need to have some clarity too. I mean, Greg's very comfortable with the guy that we use at the LEC right now. And when he's here to do his test, it's just as easy for him to come over here and do the test on the new courthouse. And we got to have some consistency and somebody testing them regularly. We didn't do anything with these boilers and they were absolutely unmaintained and we're paying the price for it on an emergency situation. Again, we didn't have the money to do it. But I do agree with the fact that we need to have the waters tested in the boilers and make sure we're going through these things thoroughly. When we spend money, we should maintain it. Yes, John.
Yeah, and don't let me be remiss. We didn't have the money and the previous maintenance supervisors, Greg, back to Chris, all suggested that this is what needed to be done, but because of lack of funds, it simply was not approved.
Sure.
So we were hanging out there and we are paying for it now.
Go ahead, Rick.
There's a question and I'm asking it because I don't know the answers, but between the new jail, these buildings, are we better off perhaps looking at maybe additional headcount and having somebody that specializes in taking care of that and eliminating this yearly annual cost? And having that additional body around to do other things?
No, what the problem is, it's a multiple specialized areas. So these guys that we're gonna get the preventative maintenance schedule from, they're specialized in this stuff. Our maintenance guys are not qualified to go through there and do all the new electronics, all that kind of thing. It's very labor intensive and it's something that's not gonna be forgotten either, because when they come in here to check the 75 VAVs, they're all gonna be checked and they're gonna be written down that they were checked and on a schedule. The problem I see too, even if we had somebody qualified to even go through the electronics and work on this stuff, they get through half the VAVs and they get pulled off to do something else. There's got to be some clarity and there's got to be some consistency in this stuff because we're going to pay down the road again if we don't protect our investment. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, from my experiences where I worked before, they tried to do it in-house. They did it incorrectly. Liability would come on and it really destroyed the efficiency of a brand new system. Trying to save the money and do it in-house. So, you know, as long as these people have liability insurance with what they do, then I think we're better off because this is such specialized training and each individual unit. And it's just amazing how much different it is than the old days and stuff. And again, the computerization and stuff, we'd be training our people all the time. Once we trained a person up to that height, they could get a job in 400 other places. We'd be training for somebody else. So I'm all for getting a specialized system on this.
John?
I think if you look at these and you run the figures just even in my head here, and then you would count the wages and bennies for a full-time person, you're coming out way ahead to do it like this. And it is a specialized field. And you'd be paying half again this month to have somebody here to do this. And then, like somebody said, if you pulled off after number 35 of the VA, ever come back or.
Right.
So it's money well spent.
And another thing, it sounds like a lot of money, which it is, but it's also like Hartwig or whomever, they'd have multiple people in here. They'd have boiler experts, they'd have computer guys that are doing all the controls. They would have condensing people. There's different specialties that all these people represent, so that it's not just like it's going to be one guy here all year, because he's not. But that's I think it's a very important thing. Does anybody else have any other questions on that? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the Hartwig Preventative Maintenance Service Agreement for the old courthouse and the new courts building and move them to finance for consideration. Jack, seconded by Dave Bally. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Okay. New business. The ARP committee met, all that stuff is in the onboard. You can read through all that they've been talking about with their new plans and what we're doing. Expansion tank replacement discussion. Greg, would you like to?
Yeah. At the immediate time right now, I've got two bids. One came in at 6,900 and the other one was 8,800. So there's quite a bit of difference. We have the boiler working. We drained the tank down. It's an expansion tank, so it has a bladder and the bladder is bad in it. So we was able to drain it down to get it enough expansion area so that we could use it like the old style tank for right now to get us by. And if we can squeak it by till, we do something with that boiler, we'll sure try. Then we can change that tank maybe when we're changing the boiler out. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
If we're gonna wait several years down the road, then I don't recommend it because
Sure.
it has a tendency to pop off the big relief valves. And if nobody's there on a weekend and it does that, we're gonna have quite a mess. So we
This
gotta
is-
keep an
this
eye
is in
on
the-
it.
This is in the building that's 43 years old. The boiler is
Right.
43 years old. And the suggestion that Greg and I have been talking about is, as opposed to replacing the tank now, we're getting ready to shut that boiler off for the year. As opposed to replacing the tank now and spending the money, it's better to have a system put in as a whole. So you get the warranties and everything is installed by this said person and the warranties aren't different and it's just better. And like Greg said, that boiler is getting shut down, correct, Greg?
Yes, if Mother Nature ever cooperates, we're gonna be shutting her down and we'll be utilizing the air. So it does get used some in the fall of the year because we have some of the VAVs have to have the hot water to them, but in the summertime, we can usually just run straight with the ACs on them and that's it on the multi-zones.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? No? The quote for replacement of the elevator. Quotes are on board. We have an elevator right now that is in the first floor of the older section of the new courts building. We had a bailiff stuck in there last week, I believe, or the week prior. We've been having issues with this elevator. They can fix it for $20,000, 19,000 some odd dollars. We'd be getting the last parts of that like elevator for $19,000 to $20,000 to fix that elevator. I talked to the ARPA committee. It's I think what's best for the county is to replace the elevator. We're going to fix it for $20,000. It does not mean that something else isn't going to go bad. When the guys look in the cabinets over there, Greg, you want to explain to them when they open up the doors over there, what kind of response we get?
I've had two different technicians at two different times go open up the control door for that elevator and their first expression is, "Oh my." And it usually isn't a good sign when they say that, but the $19,000 or $20,000 for the door assembly, that there's something else wrong with it now. It's a board that they cannot get. And so the 19,000 is not even an option at this point because there's something else other than the door cam that's bad. So.
Well, then with that being said, and we can't use the elevator for safety reasons, I would entertain a motion to authorize Greg Saunders to take the steps necessary to replace the non-functioning elevator in the Lee County Courts building with a not to exceed cost of $190,000 and move to finance for consideration. Do I have a motion for that? Marvin, second? Second. Jack seconds it. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None.
Tom,
Okay.
I have something else to add.
Oh, I'm
on
sorry,
that.
Greg.
Before we can do the project, they have to come and reassess it. They have to send a special agent out. They have to abide by all the safety rules. So there's it's sort of not a cut and dry price right now till we get that report back, because they have ADA rules, they have fire rules, they have electrical rules and everything they have to abide by. So once we get that report back, we'll probably have a firmer number of what it's gonna cost.
Absolutely.
Just want to make sure everybody knew that, you know, it's not gonna be, this is the final number till we get that report back. I have no way of telling you.
Right, because they will not do the engineering and what have you until we have a contract signed that's saying we are going to replace the elevator, because it is so labor intensive. They're building an elevator to match an existing box that's in there. So it's not as easy as ordering an elevator and having them put it in. It just doesn't work that way.
Tom, can I interrupt
Sure.
for just a second? So sort of on Rick's point about budget and, you know, where is this money going to continue to come from? And then back to the ARPA topic, specific to this committee, the ARPA committee approved, and you will be seeing it at the Finance Committee and the full board committee, request to approve the allocation of $1.5 million to be used at the discretion of the Finance Committee to address some of these items that you see coming forward. So while the Finance Committee will have the discretion to approve these expenditures, we can modify the budget by adding additional revenue and then expending this additional revenue in the way that we choose to. There will need to be a budget adjustment, it's my understanding, but at least for now, ARPA Committee has agreed to allocate 1.5 million towards these types of expenditures.
Thank you. The next thing on the list is the lead abatement for the old LEC shooting range. We've been talking with Sheriff Symington. He's been very good to Greg and I as far as the old LEC in the basement. Sheriff Symington has now agreed that they will no longer use the shooting range. So we have on the onboard, there's a quote for the lead removal, and it's so our employees can go in there with a clean bill of health to actually remove some of the things that are in the actual shooting range. The shooting range will no longer be used by Sheriff Symington. He's made provisions to go elsewhere, which is really nice. And he's been working with us big time on trying to get this old LEC remodel project figured out and working with us on that, which I appreciate. But the quote, I believe, was for $3,000, Greg? It's on the onboard. What is it? $3,350.
And then they have the disposal of the contaminants that they remove. When we figured that a little high, because we figured it as $1,500, it's like $650, something like that per barrel. And we have no idea how many barrels are gonna have. I'm assuming it's not gonna be that much, but I'd rather cover my bases ahead of time.
Sure. John?
Yeah, just quick point of clarification. You did most of it, Tom. I was under the impression that range was just going to be taken out of there. I didn't put two and two together as far as this being just sweeping up the contaminants, the lead filings and so on. That's a hell of a good bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I own a shooting range.
Yeah.
And I know what it takes to get somebody to come in and
Sure.
clean everything up. And that is a very good bid, $3,300.
Yeah.
Then you can go ahead and tear out the old range and have at it. So,
Yes, Sheriff Symington shared the information. He's been using these folks and he gave us the information to contact them because they were familiar with the shooting range. And they've done they've done work for us in the past for Sheriff Symington, and John shared it with us, and that's who we contacted to do the removal. You, Greg?
And also this quote that they gave us is only good for 90 days too. So it does have a timeline on it.
Well, we'll get to it by August, I would think.
Okay.
Just kidding. No, so with that being said, does anybody have any questions as far as the lead removal of the said shooting range? Okay. I'm getting to that. Gee. I'd entertain a motion to approve and sign the BTS lead abatement proposal 1 and 2 for the amount not to exceed $5,500 and move to the Finance Committee for consideration. Bill, second. Jack, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. Okay, the next item is the quote for the asbestos report for the old LEC. In order for us to go through and truly get a demolition price, we have to have a phase 1 study done of the actual building. We had then the Sterling Environmental come over. She's a local gal. She works with the local architect and she's very thorough. She came in and went through it with Greg and I. And she's going to be testing a lot of products over there for asbestos removal. This price is not to abate the job. This is for us to know what has to be abated so we can get an abatement price. This is just a study being done to let us know what asbestos is in the building. Greg, you want to talk about that a little bit? Because we didn't think there was a whole lot in the piping. It's more in the floor tile and the.
There's a lot of bits and little pieces here and there that she was a little worried about. And she did do the testing. We haven't got the results back yet. But I don't think it's going to be major, and we won't know until we get the report for sure. But there's a lot of asbestos, I guess I didn't realize, and so many different glues and everything
Possibilities
else.
of asbestos.
So possibly, yes. So we need to have that addressed so that we can.
In the onboard, you can
forward.
actually see what she's going to be testing. You can actually see what she's testing. It's listed out in there.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on the phase one, Dave?
She's already tested these or?
I don't know. I don't think so. Has she already been in the test?
Yeah, she's in the process of testing the stuff right now.
Okay.
So
Because I might refer to Mr. Simonton on this, but I know in schools and stuff like this, this was supposed to be done and on file from the past and maintain a file on this. And I was wondering if the jail had a file from previous sheriffs or anything like that, because it was a residential area. You know, I don't know. I don't know specifically if it was necessary in a building such as this. I know schools had to do this.
Yeah, and they would have had to have a phase one. John, help me understand, if they were going to do a demolition on that building, a phase one study would have had to have been done. Did you guys actually have a phase one study done for the demolition of the old LEC, or was that never discussed?
It was discussed but never done because we didn't move forward with the project you have going, nor were we going to move forward with remodeling that facility.
This is supposed to be a pre-demolition study. I mean, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be an ongoing study.
That's what
And
this
I don't
is.
know if jails, from my experience, whether they fell under it or not, but whether it was, all schools and stuff have this already done on file. So
John?
The
We-
bids that we put together, John helped me out here too, but the bids that were put together for demolition of that building, reconstruction of the Sally Port and maybe an EMA up above, were never approved, so it was never carried on. to the
Sure.
point where-
We had two different bids, Tom, but they were not based on any study. And the bids were, as I recall, they were almost $150,000 apart. And, which raised some red flags as who's bidding what, do they really know what's in there? So we never moved forward after that, didn't do a good preliminary study anyway. So I think what the process you're working through is the way to go. So you can get your best price and know what needs to be removed and what doesn't.
Sure. John?
Yeah, I agree there. You're doing just the right thing at the right time. And there was always some wonderment whether or not we would tear it down or utilize it. It never came to fruition until just now.
Sure. And actually, with what was removed from the basement, it was very clear to see what was, there is nothing hidden anymore. She can see exactly what's there to be removed. So I would entertain a motion to approve the quote from Sterling Environmental LLC for an asbestos report on the amount not to exceed $985 and send to the finance committee for consideration. Do I have a motion for that? Jack?
I'll make it.
Second, Dave Bally. Okay. Next one, all in favor?
Aye.
Marvin, thanks. Me too. Aye. All opposed? Okay, yeah. Okay, so then the next thing is the board chairman conference room remodel. We would like to, in the conference room between Becky and Bob, there's file storages everywhere. That's where the coffee's at. When we bring people in, lawyers and what have you, there's meetings with the chairman has quite a few meetings. There's developers coming in. There's people coming in to do the county business with the chairman, and a lot of the committee chairs. And we'd like to remodel that room in order to get rid of all the stuff that's visibly out there, redo the coffee station, and also have a TV in there, a big enough TV where we can actually do video conferencing from that room. Not in here, but in there to where we could do PowerPoint presentations, because a lot of these companies come in and do PowerPoint presentations. So we're wanting to remodel that so it's more of a usable space. There's a lot of stuff that gets done in that room, and it would help Becky for storage of stuff, making sure things are put away the way they're supposed to be. And it's just something we want to put a new, we want to put some cabinets in, countertops, a new floor, and paint it, and then put a TV up so we can have video conferences or Zoom meetings or whatever we need to have in there in a much smaller capacity than what we're doing in this room. So is there anybody that would have anything to say?
This
John?
has already been proposed. We were going to put technology in the meeting room behind here. That has changed, but I believe that was always going to be part of remodeling the build of the room you're discussing, and for that exact purpose.
Okay.
Just hadn't come along quite yet.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything, any questions on what Wendy, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Nope, I think you covered it.
Okay, so we will look into putting numbers together and reporting back to the committee on what we're planning on doing. Yes, Dave?
Would we need then both this room, or would this room be as an overflow onto the courthouse, or
This
like claims committee meets on a big screen? Could that happen over there rather than
Absolutely.
having two separate, two different units? Can we make everything in one and make it a smaller meeting room?
So just from my perspective, Dave, the screen, the TV screen, the monitor essentially is the duplicate there, and you can get those for $400 or $500. The underlying, concern that I originally had was the storage. I don't know, when was the last time any of you stepped in that room to get coffee or do anything? There's a lot of stuff in there because we don't really have any place to store office supplies and paper and stuff. And that's what you see piled around there. And so we're looking to, again, like he said, some cabinets to kind of get that stuff tucked away. The TV piece of this, the technology piece of this is going to be minimal. In fact, the whole project isn't going to be hugely expensive, but we're looking at, like Tom said, cabinets, flooring, and fresh paint. My understanding is that Tom would like the in-house maintenance staff to do all the installation. So we're looking at actually just purchasing of the cabinets and the flooring, excuse me. So we're not talking about a big project here. And we have dual purpose here, not just the computer monitor, but also these other items.
And just so everyone understands too, we're trying to set a precedence as far as what we're going to put in. Carpeting is kind of a thing of the past. The new vinyl planking flooring is waterproof. It's relatively inexpensive, but I mean, with the maintenance department, we're hoping that we can pick and choose a few rooms here and there and say, we're going to do the voting registration room. These are the 2 weeks we're going to do it. We're going to put a new floor in, paint the wall, fix the walls, paint the walls, and start just dialing up the building a little bit with our maintenance staff. So, and that's something we've been discussing with Greg about. So that's already on the finance committee's agenda to talk about that. Greg Gates, the resolution, you want to talk about that?
I mentioned it earlier, Tom, in my report, but basically, this is a resolution that we have to include as part of our package that we'll submit to IDOT. And as I mentioned previously, due to the aging of our fleet of vehicles, both minivans as well as light duties, we're requesting up to 10 replacement vehicles. And we'll see what IDOT actually is going to be doing. Like I mentioned, they've not done the CVP program for now going on 3 years. And the other downside to it, can't do anything about it, is we're still looking, even if they would approve those, 15 to 18 months coming out of production and actually receipt. So we're looking probably at 1.5 years.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I'd entertain a motion to move the authorizing application for a capital assistance grant to the executive committee for inclusion on the full county board. Do I have a motion? Jack, take that. Bill, second it. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay, the next thing is the animal control ordinances. Terry, would you like to speak to this?
Morning, everybody. I've got Brandy here with me also. We worked on these for quite a while. So I think we finally got them to where we want them. State's Attorney's Office has looked through many of our changes and has been really patient. And we have the request form that kind of explains everything, along with some bullet points. Thank you, Wendy. That we think make it a little easier for what ordinances we are kind of changing and what we expect. I don't know if we want to go through every single one of those, or if everyone has had a chance to look them over and if there's any questions.
So just to clarify, this is Wendy, Terry. At this point in time, because it is an ordinance change, this will lay over until next month before you actually approve it. So you've got some time to review if you haven't. But I would urge you to review the bullet point document, which, by the way, I didn't put together. Somebody over there at Animal Control did. I just added it to the packet.
No, but it was a good suggestion, though. I'll put it that way.
So there's a bullet point document that kind of gives you the high level overview, but you've also got the specific ordinance changes attached that you can review. And I would highly suggest you do that if you haven't already between now and next month, when these will be going before the board for approval.
And then one thing I'd like to compliment Terry on, I talked to her about a month and a half ago, and she said she had some changes she wanted to make, and I told her to put them forward, and she's done it. And it's a very good job. And thanks for submitting them, Terry.
Thanks, Tom. Brandy had a lot of work in this also. So I think between the two of us, we've kind of taken time in our busy schedule, since there's only the two of us here. We've had full kennels, we've had welfare calls and bites and stuff, and it was kind of hard to take time to get this finished, but we did get it done. And I think there are some good ordinances. Dave, do you have a question?
Yes, I see many of them are similar positions where you're referencing state law basically, or provisions, but some do not reference other laws. So some of these are totally Lee County exclusive then, or?
So, yes, I believe so. So state ordinances or state statutes, we cannot do any less than what the state ordinance says, but we can add to a state ordinance. And then also we have some that are kind of the ones that you don't see a state reference for, kind of are, I want to say, some county issues that we've been having with some residents or dogs. So that's why those had been added.
Okay, my concern is, anytime you add something, it really needs to be looked at. Sometimes you draw things that inadvertently that I don't know how to say this, but it's very hard to draw law. So some things in here I did have some question on. Is there a way to kind of estimate? I have not had time to go through it as good as I'd like to have, but I will have some of it reviewed and pull out, especially things that are not state law already.
Okay, that's why we had the state's attorney's office look things over. It's not just us
right
putting things on paper.
Everything that's in blue font, would that be considered what is a Lee County only type deal, Terry?
No. So like the first, blue is the changes.
Right.
So some of them, like on the first couple pages, are they're also state law reference, most of them. but it's just definition, clarification.
Yeah, I was just trying to point out for David, so he could help, that any changes that are listed in blue would be the ones that are the changes.
Yes.
Well, many of them are reference to like
Correct.
humane care for animal stuff. They're just additional definitions. I guess I found one area and I'm looking it up. Oh, restrictions of animals and motor vehicles. There's no state law reference, and are we talking seat belts? Are we talking, how do we, that little area itself, just like, okay, you put a rope around them. What do you do? What's a safe way? Do we have to crate every animal in a vehicle? Or this could be, I mean, I could hear a whole lot of feedback from some of these things. So, and I've got access to somebody who writes animal care for my son's into it, so give it a month, I'll try to get it reviewed.
Some of these ordinances, we have pulled from other counties also.
Okay,
So that's kind of where some of the other ones have come in play also.
I just don't have to, I don't want to report to the public and say, oh, this is only a Lee County law, because we drafted it up.
Well, it could be.
Yeah. Well, okay. If we are forging new grounds, we really need to look into. And is there any way we can isolate those areas? And as I go through more and more, I can see areas that are referencing, and then other areas seem to be, especially towards the end, that do not reference state law. So we're starting on our own here, forging new ground.
Charlie,
You
do
know,
you have-
we ran into a situation like this, Dave. Greg was implementing a drug and alcohol program for lots, and it was a federal program. And we had to approve it, and there's a lot of questions in that. But in all actuality, we had to abide by the federal law, but we also had local law that was superseded what the federal, we were stronger and more persistent with what we were doing is what the government wanted us to do. So I think in a lot of the situations is we're taking the state laws, and we're abiding by all the state laws, but we also have our ordinances for Lee County that are privy to Lee County, not the state of Illinois.
Yes, correct, Tom. Thank you.
Yes, Rick.
I guess I've got some issues too, especially with this one about the animals in a motor vehicle. I mean, I drive through town and I see people with 2 or 3 dogs or whatever in their back seat with the window, halfway down. Dogs got their head sticking out the window. I mean, are we going to start pulling over people because they don't have a seatbelt or a crate? Or I guess I agree with Dave to a certain degree on this particular one. If a guy has a dog out on the farm, he wants to throw it in the back of his UTV and whatever, he's got to get a crate now and put them in there. Sometimes we create problems on ourselves, and I think this is perhaps an area.
Right. I think so. Mostly what we're trying to avoid here with the animals in the back of vehicles. We have had one particular person here in Dixon that his dog that he just adopted from, I don't know where, she does not like other dogs. That dog has jumped out of his vehicle at least 3 times that we know of, and has injured other animals, and has bitten. So that's kind of where we were going with that.
But wouldn't that be covered under the running at large and keeping your animal under control? I mean, I don't know that we have to particularly.
I don't know if I could actually, Charlie, could I press that as far as being off property? I don't know, because it's a vehicle.
Oh, yeah, I
In a corner, I think.
So So to add clarity here, just to read from that section in the ordinance, it's relatively brief. It's saying, no owner may permit an animal to ride in an open bed pickup truck or other transport vehicle transported in a crate or similar structure that is secured in the vehicle in a manner to prevent the animal from escaping, jumping from the vehicle, or being ejected. So I think the focus here, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, was the open bed. Because there's a lot of
Correct.
open bed. It's not a dog in the back of a car or a pickup truck hanging his head out the window. It's something open where they could get out and jump out.
Correct.
Put a B of the thing and it's a UTV. It doesn't say anything about open bed then, so it.
But a
Just one
UTV,
area. I have not reviewed the whole thing, but it's like, we made a rule for one instance where this animal was aggressive. That's another incidence. You know, I agree, animals should not be run open bed, but you put a leash on them in an open bed, you just hung them. So are we gonna make an agreement that we have to crate them and tie the crate down and secure everything?
I think, Dave, my way of looking at it is the ordinance. I mean, I'm not seeing the police and the sheriffs pulling people over because they've got a dog in the back of the truck. But let's say a dog jumped out of the back of the truck and bit somebody. We can, then we have an ordinance that says, well, no, because then we have protections because we said, well, it's supposed to be fastened down in a crate or a chain, and it was not. So now you're now you're in
Because it has
violation
to
of an
be
ordinance.
on leash at all times, and any aggressive
But-
animals in other areas of the thing.
Right? Who's gonna police that? Are we gonna have police pulling over farmers?
Jump out of a vehicle, if they jump off of your leash, if they jump off, that doesn't matter if the motor vehicle is issued. I mean, this is one section of it, and then we get into barn cats and stuff, that are not necessarily, we're trying to make new rules. And anytime we make new rules, we have to really look at issues, and otherwise we end up, you know, if it's a state law and somebody calls me on it, I can say it's a state law. If it's.
But
just
it's there
rural,
for
I can
us.
tell them to call Tom.
But it's there for us to enforce. We're having issues in these particular areas. And if we would need to, we don't have a bite in it if we don't have an ordinance.
And I understand, that's fine, but we really need to look at some of these
Okay,
as they're written.
all right.
John?
And I may be totally out there, just anytime you try to draw a law, a new rule, it can look at the other end of the situation and where can it become an issue.
so maybe Dave, or to the other members of the committee, that if there's any sections that you are concerned about, and you communicate that to Terry, as she said, a lot of this language came from what other counties were doing. So they went out, did the research and picked up some best practices to bring back to our ordinance. So I don't know if it'd make you feel better, Dave, to know that, you know, Terry's not forging her own path without, you know, having other counties do it. But if you give her a list of the ones you're concerned about, she might be able to tell you, where did that language come from? What other counties are doing that? And that might help you all feel a little more comfortable about it.
And any input from anybody on the properties committee is more than welcome. I'm sure Terry would love to have you out there to talk this over or sit down and go over these things as well.
John,
John,
did you
you-
have something? Sorry, Tom.
No, I'm sorry, John, did you have something?
Well, I hate to disagree with Dave, but, and I am somewhat against laws being overwritten, but you have to have enough teeth in there that if the prosecutor really wants to prosecute at his discretion, he has the ability to do so. And Terry has the ability to enforce those ordinances she's written. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna, when it comes to court, that everything's gonna be set in stone and fine.
So we're gonna prosecute people for having a dog in the back of their truck?
No,
No,
you're gonna prosecute
We're
people
saying
if they jump out of the truck and
All right.
bite somebody, then you have something.
builds that layer in there.
Who's
It
gonna,
makes discretion. Does discretion work in law, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, you guys aren't prosecuting anybody, so
yeah,
There is discretion.
It's,
Every day.
Yeah, then we start becoming who makes the
Matt was
rule?
very quick to bring that to our attention that we're not prosecuting people. They are.
Okay, is there any further discussion? I would entertain a motion to move the animal control ordinances to the executive committee for inclusion on the full county board. The ordinance will be held over in April for approval in May. Gives us all time to read through things and question things. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make it.
Jack, Bill seconds it. All in favor, say aye. All opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Tom.
In the onboard, there is a resolution for appointing Rex Meyer to the ZBA as a permanent member. I'd entertain a motion to move the resolution appointment of Rex Myers to the ZBA as a permanent member to the executive committee for inclusion on the county board agenda. Do I have a motion for that? Jack, seconded by Marvin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Another resolution for Glenn Hughes to the ZBA. I'd entertain a motion to move the resolution reappointing Glenn Hughes to the ZBA to the executive committee for inclusion on the county board agenda. Do I have a motion? Jack, second? Bill, thank you very much. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Okay, I'm not aware of any executive session. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn at this time.
I'll make that.
Jack and Marvin seconds it. Okay, we're adjourned. All in favor, say